put myself on mute. Just want to remind you, Steve, like similar to your cough, if you kind of flub up your words, take a little pause and start over, or say pause, take a pause and just start over if you need to.
Okay.
All right, and I'm going on mute now, so just let me know if you need me.
Mhm. Hello, Job Shop enthusiast. Your host, Jay Jacobs, here with another exciting guest today. Steve Doody is the owner and CEO of the CSI Group in Westboro, Mass., which is short for Component Sources International. Unlike many job shop owners, Steve comes from the sales side, specifically beginning as a manufacturer's rep and then starting a shop to take advantage of some of the gaps that he saw. So we'll get into some of that as well as talk about how he integrates his shop within a network of other shops to be a partner supplying kitted assemblies and other services rather than being just a piece part provider. And I think that that is really important if you want to create value as a job shop. And in essence, by doing so, he has created a lot more success in moving up the supply chain, creating the value. Welcome to the Job Shop Show, Steve.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here.
I'd like to start out with how we were introduced. And that was by Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, of
Yep.
an organization which you and I are both members, you for a lot longer than myself, I think 15 years now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I've been doing it for 4 years. I wish I'd started sooner. We both find a ton of value in it. And for me, all the programs that I attend, coach is definitely the last one I would ever give up. Could you share, Steve, what strategic coach is, what you've learned from it, and what you have found unique with the program?
Sure. Yeah. Strategic Coach is a training program, so to speak, coaching program for entrepreneurs, business owners. We meet one day a quarter, and like you said, I've been doing it for 15 years. It's been such a help for me. I won't say it saved me, but when I first got in the program, I was working 6 to 7 days a week, totally stressed out, overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually sick. I got an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto's,
Oh,
which
wow.
my immune system took out my thyroid. So
Oh.
I was hurting. And when I went to the coach, as you know, Jay, they have the time management system,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn about free days and focus days and buffer days, and yeah, learning about free days and focusing on your health, taking time out to be with your family,
Mm-hmm.
managing your health and your stress level. Excuse me, I have a really bad cold. Um, really, really helped me out. That and many other concepts. You've got the gap, which, I think I was born in the gap. Uh, the gap, as you know, is having expectations that, you can't realize. And
Yeah, the gap is a huge concept, and it's called the gap and the gain. And I think one of the ways I like how Dan describes it is if you are on a boat in the ocean, if you are looking at the horizon, no matter how far you travel, you will never, the horizon will always be as far as it is now. So no matter how successful you are, if all you're doing is looking forward at what you have to accomplish, you're going to put yourself in the gap. And if you look back and see how far you've come, you have a sense of appreciation and realize that, hey, you actually have accomplished a lot, and that puts you in what he calls the gain. So uh, yeah, I was definitely in the gap more often than in the gain before I joined the program.
yes, yes, and dealing with people, especially in your company, you have these expectations that nobody can meet, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was a game changer for me for sure. Then it was a Colby. Colby is a personality test that defines how you see the world, how you're wired, as you know, Jay, and
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. You can you can get a great insight dealing with people, communicating with people that have different needs for communicating and information and things like that.
Yeah, the Colby was a really valuable tool for us because I had a fantastic COO I was working with, Tom Persh, and he and I, there's 4 components to the Colby. One of them, which is your propensity for risk taking, and they score it from 1 to 10. I'm a 9, he's a 1. So anything with 3 or more difference, you have the potential for conflict. And we would
Yeah,
butt heads,
yeah,
and we didn't know why, and we didn't know how to solve it. We both had tremendous respect for one another. But the Colby showed us how to work together. And once we understood how to work together, and it specifically gave us the techniques to do so, the that came in the last year. I was with Rapid. We were on fire. We started to accomplish so much more faster because we each gave each other the freedom to work the way that we naturally did.
that's awesome.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Uh, I again, coaches made a difference for me as an entrepreneur, and with obviously it's not free, so you've been investing in it for quite a while, and sounds like
Yes,
you're
yes,
getting the value too.
absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome. And then the other great thing about it, Jay, is I meet guys like you, really successful guys and guys that have figured things out that I haven't, which is usually the case. And it's just a great day of being around a lot of really smart, successful people.
Well, likewise, Steve, and actually that's one of the things I'm excited to talk about today is learn from you, because you have just an amazing story from where you started out. And perhaps the best way is if you could share with us what your purpose is now, what your mission is.
Yeah, my purpose. So my purpose is to create career opportunities for people that don't necessarily fit into the industrial education system, and people that have made some bad decisions along the way, and have had some setbacks.
How did that come about? Can you start back in the beginning of your story, your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, so it goes back to I was definitely one of those people that didn't fit into the industrial model of education, and I always struggled in school. In my junior year of high school, I got thrown out for various reasons, and
So let's just repeat that so people really understand. You got thrown out of high school your junior year.
yeah, like September or October of my junior year. And yeah, so I was out of school, and I was working full time at a warehouse unloading trucks, and I was pretty miserable. I made an attempt to go to night school, but that didn't work out because I seldom went. So I got kicked out of that as well. But I was unloading trucks, and it was a physical job. Back
Hmm.
then, we didn't have the material handling equipment we have today, and one day I had an epiphany. I was working with this truck driver, as I always did, unloading a truck, and this guy was hurting. He was beat up. He was, he, wasn't in a good place in his life, and pretty miserable. And we were talking, and all of a sudden he grabs my arm, and he says to me, "Listen, kid, look at me." He says, "I'm 50 years old. Both of my knees are shot, my back. I'm miserable. I'm a truck driver. You don't want to be like me." And wow, I looked this guy in the eyes, and it was like I got hit with a bolt of lightning. And I saw the future, and it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So from there, I went back to school. I begged to get back in. They let me in, and I went on to college. I had to go to junior college because nobody was going to let me in. In fact, the dean of admissions there said I was wasting his time and mine.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yep. So
And
I,
this is after you got your GED?
yep, yep. I went back in my senior year, and between getting credits for work study and taking a million classes, and I was able to graduate.
So you just went off to college then?
Yeah, yeah. So I got double promoted, I guess. That's a positive way of saying it. Yeah, and I went off to college, and then I got my associate's degree, and then I went on and started working, and went to school at night at a really pretty good business school, Bentley, here in
Yeah.
yeah. I studied marketing and finance, and then I started a career, and I was very fortunate to work at that time. This is 1980, and back then companies were vertically integrated. They did everything. They did machining, they did turning, milling, molding, casting, plating. These little mini shops within a shop,
Hmm.
and of course that's no longer the case. And a lot of people don't know about all these different technologies, and that's one of the things that we bring to the market is all these different capabilities and manufacturing technologies.
So you went to, what was the name of the company you went to work for?
I used to work at a company called Omni Spectra, and yeah,
And they had all those capabilities in-house there.
yeah, and they had a big machine shop, and I really enjoyed. I used to eat my lunch with the engineers to learn. It's like I used to buy the tooling and the raw material, and it's like, how does all this stuff work? And I was just really into it. I was a sponge back then, and I loved it.
So you were actually in a procurement role at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I started out of college. I worked at another company before that and ran a stock room, and then I got a job at this company working as an expediter.
Hmm.
And being an expediter, I was calling all these job shops trying to get parts that were 2 months late, and they wouldn't return your phone call. So I said to myself, I can do a better job of this. If I ever have my own company, I'm going to be a really service-oriented customer company.
It's, it's one of those things that is so obvious. It's the basic blocking and tackling
Yeah.
of being in business. And there's another strategic coach member who is making all these acquisitions in the medical services space, and he was presenting to us, and smiled and he said, "You know what? One of the biggest impacts I made after I acquired these businesses was I made them answer the phone."
Yeah, absolutely. It's
So
it's crazy.
yeah, it gets back to the basics, no matter how much technology we have, and actually technology can get in the way.
Yes.
So how did you get into being or what's the next part of your journey from Omni Spectra?
Yeah, so when I was there, we had really demanding requirements for machine parts, real small diameter, like 50 thousandths diameter, beryllium copper contacts and
Hmm.
other devices. And they had slots and cross holes, and you couldn't have burrs, and you got to inspect them under a microscope. And most of the shops in the U.S. just really they really couldn't do it consistently at a high level, and it was pretty high production back then.
Hmm.
So I developed relationships with companies in France, just on the Swiss border. They had the old watchmaking technology,
Sure. Yeah.
and it was a really good fit for these kind of high precision, small diameter machine components. And they were also super automated over there. Back in the 80s, they had automatic bar loaders and drill checkers and and all kinds of automation. And they all the shops that I worked with, they ran unattended at night. And
And
so,
this is back in the 80s.
and this is back in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was pretty special. And, and I saw it as a business opportunity. So I started CSI Component Sources International, the rep firm, in 1987.
Hmm. Was that scary going out on your own?
Um, it. I don't remember it being scary. I had my second son at that time, so I just thought it was super exciting, and I was working with some great companies, and I just knew it was going to be a home run, and it really was. We grew the company, we grew the business.
So you started out repping. What did you specialize in? And were all the shops European, or did you have some US based shops?
Oh yeah, we had U.S. based shops. We had companies located here in Massachusetts. A Swiss shop that specialized in Swiss machining of plastics. Did a lot of Teflon components. Another shop that had the old Brown and Sharp cam machines and multi-spindle machines, and a few smaller shops for some quick turn stuff.
Hmm. So how did that lead into you bringing your own shop into the picture?
Yeah, so being a rep, um, aka an industrial prostitute, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
And,
you know,
and, and by the way, I don't know if this is for maybe some of the younger audience, that that might seem like a crude term, but did you ever get Christmas lists from some of the buyers that you worked with? You know what I'm talking about there, right?
oh yeah, gift lists, yep, yep, and liquid lunches, and oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there was a lot more uh, expectation of favors back then than there is today, and it wasn't out of the ordinary at all, was it?
No, it's just a way of doing business, and there was nothing really bad about it. It was just the way it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm sorry I interrupted you there, but the you saw some gaps, you saw some opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. So I saw these opportunities to bring this force of manufacturing capability for this particular niche in the marketplace. And then in 90, yeah, so I was 94, I started CSI manufacturing, because being a rep, you're just a phone call away. You do a great job and you get people a lot of business, and they say, "Hey Steve, nice job, but I got my own guy now."
Mm-hmm.
So
You
I
can't be
want
too successful as a rep, right?
yeah, yeah. And that's yeah. So as a joint venture with self and the French companies that I still represent today, we started CSI Manufacturing. They were minority shareholders, and we wanted to have stateside manufacturing, reactive manufacturing, U.S. dollar delivered,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a success. It was a struggle.
What
Uh,
what type of equipment did you bring in first? What
uh,
type of parts?
Swiss CNC. It was a Tornos machine that really wasn't a very good machine. It was some of the machines they had in France, but um, we struggled, but we built a business and we built a team, and today we got 30 machines and 25 people in the shop, and we
Mm-hmm.
got we do a lot of different machining and serve a lot of different markets.
And you're in the greater Boston area.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and a lot of the companies, they have the same machines in some cases, but as you know, Jay, people develop their capabilities very differently. They specialize in different materials. They
Mm-hmm.
specialize in different types of machining on the machine, using attachments in various very creative ways, polygon milling. Doing a lot of work on front and the back of the machine, no secondary operations, and very high production.
So you are still representing other shops, and we're going to get into how that fits into assembly and the kitting and that sort of stuff. But that's
Right.
pretty different than a lot of reps. Not that there are a lot of reps who've started shops, but I was a manufacturer's rep before I started Rapid. And once I started getting going with Rapid, I stopped the repping, but you've continued it. And that is an important part of the, I'll call it the network that you've created and the unique positioning you have with your customers. So can you describe how that all works? And I don't know if you ever consciously had to decide whether to continue that or drop it, but if you can jump into that some too.
Yeah, yeah. So the way it works is that we're first always trying to bring value to the customer, to the relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
what's the value is bringing more capability, more services. And the way you do that is you bring the right process to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was saying before, companies specialize in different types of manufacturing, and it is our job to understand exactly who's the best at this particular type of manufacturing process. It can also include outside of Swiss machining, stamping, molding,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and then when if you can look at a drawing and you say, that's a great stamp part. Or maybe it should be sheet metal, or maybe it could be milled, or you can take a milled part and turn it into a sheet metal part, and
Mm.
you can just bring so much value to a relationship. Even on the Swiss machining side, you know who's really good at certain things and what they're really not good at. A lot of
Right.
shops try to be everything to everybody, and it's difficult to do that. We try to do that every day here when nobody else wants to make it, right?
Right. Right.
For that next big opportunity, as we say. So everybody gets it, and that's in the group. There's this, that they all could compete with each other, and some do in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But this we have this agreement. There's enough business out there. Let's do the work that's really fitted for our shop. We have the best quality, we have the best service, we have the best price, and obviously you have the best profit as well when you have the right process. So it's really a big value add to bring the work to the right company.
And can you describe though how, again, did you consciously ever make that decision that you wanted to continue the network, or did you ever think about, should I just focus on making parts and grow in CSI manufacturing?
No, I always thought of it, together. It's, collaborating with really good shops, and then augmenting that with what we do here in our shop has been a big win. Our charter originally, the charter of CSI Manufacturing. We talked about my purpose, and that's part of the charter of CSI Manufacturers, um, creating career opportunities for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in addition to that, it's opening the door for the other companies in the group, and working with customers, and then as the projects or the demand increases, we can bring the other shops in that are really better suited to do that.
The When you're working now with customers, you are looking more to provide them with, I don't know if assembly is the right word, but kits,
Yep.
and you are also sourcing beyond your network and going to source from their approved supplier list if you don't have anyone in your network who, and I think that this is really important, rather than trying to force it into your network, you're more concerned with the right process, and you'd rather use their approved supplier to make
Yep.
sure that everything goes smoothly.
Exactly.
So how do you give us some examples, some stories of programs that you've worked with customers and how those evolve? How do those come in? What are the different steps? And I'm thinking of a job shop owner who says, I want to try to be more than a piece part supplier.
Right, right. Yeah, so that's all that goes back to that value, adding value to the relationship with a customer. So you see customers struggling with managing their inventory, and you see them struggle with buying. A bill of material might have 25 different parts, and we can make half of those parts, and the other half we can buy from a distributor, a hardware distributor.
Let me pause you right there.
Yep.
So when you say that they're struggling with their inventory, how is that shown? How do you know that they're struggling? Because typically the customer always is seen to be in this power seat, and they they don't have any issues.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get the best price out of you. So can you
Right.
just elaborate on that struggling piece, the issues that our customers face that we may not know about?
Yeah. So I learned from one of our bigger customers at our shop that every month they have about 100 kits they can't assemble because they're missing one part or another.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, 100, and it's a big operation. And so I said to him, man, I said, we make most of the parts that go into these kits, the important parts. I said, why don't you give me the bill of material? We'll put together a kit, package it the way your assemblers want it. We'll ship it off to anywhere in the world, and we do. We ship kits off to contract manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
and they do the final assembly and some other value add for the customer. The customer places one PO. Um, Everything that it never even comes in their building. There's no inspection. It goes to the CM.
Hmm.
CM does their job, and they have a finished good they can ship out to their customer.
That
Huge, huge.
that sounds like a huge win for the customer. So
Absolutely.
how was that just an idle conversation, or how did you uncover the fact that they were having kits that they couldn't assemble?
Yeah, it was a conversation, a meeting we had, and it was so what can we do to help you guys? What are you really struggling with?
So you
What
specifically asked that question.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's hurting you guys? What's killing you guys right now? Oh, we got shortages all the time. And I knew they had shortages because they call up and they say, hey, I need this in a week. Can you help me out? We're trying to make our month, right?
Right,
You've
right.
heard that story, right?
Yeah,
And that was the basis of your business, I guess, to a certain
it,
extent.
it was.
Yeah. um, so yeah, and then you roll these up in some sort of a VMI logistics program.
Hmm.
Probably 70% of our orders um, in our shop and the other companies in our group are blanket type orders where we make and plate and ship. Um, in a kit form or just a single component that goes to one of their assembly operations.
So most shops, the majority of their people are making parts. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily the case in your shop. You have well, probably a good sized staff that's putting the kits together.
Yep.
You must have great QC functions. How did you evolve that so that it, I guess, wasn't just considered overhead?
Well, yeah, it's an evolution. As you know, you start out with one job, and then you come up with the right person, somebody
Hmm.
shipping guys putting the kits together, and then you've got other people that are involved in the program, depending upon how big the program goes.
Hmm.
Doing assembly, we do assembly and sub-assembly, and that's and we have a saying here. It's called bomb buying, or I say we're trying to climb our way up the bill of material, right?
Gotcha.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, so, and I say to customers, just give me the bill of material. We'll run with it. And we did. We had a big aerospace customer came to us, the buyer. We were just starting a relationship with him, and the buyer was really stressed. He goes, "We got this opportunity. It's for military. We've got to qualify. We need to build 100 of this assembly in I don't know, I think it was like 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And the bill of material was 80 components. And we made, between our shop, 3D printing, stamping, um, milling, turning, we did it. We nailed it. We delivered this kit, 80 different piece parts, 100 of each. And it was a huge, huge win for the customer. This buyer was totally overwhelmed. He was going to have to buy 80 different part numbers.
That's, huh. And you did it in 6 weeks.
We did.
So that, and that that creates the value. Now
Yep.
you're embedded. And I think it's important because there are a lot of there's a lot of gray when in that bomb. And so that knowledge is now owned by CSI, not the customer. So it's much harder to disengage from you.
Right.
And I think that's what creates part of that value, and they can't just shop around on price.
Exactly. Exactly. We're going through a program right now where we're into our third or fourth version of of an assembly, a three-piece assembly, three machine parts that get pushed together, and they got a couple O-rings on it. And it's in a, I can't tell you, but it's in a manufacturing process, not a component that goes into like an assembly, but it's part of a manufacturing process. And so they have to go through this tremendous qualification process because this component goes into making what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so you get in the ground floor, the engineers, they don't want to go there. They don't want to deal with somebody else. It's like aerospace and medical. You get qualified into a program, and we have a number of parts on aircraft, and you're in there for life unless you do something really bad.
Mm-hmm. And it all started out or starts out with asking, what are you struggling with? How can we help you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Covered a lot of CSI. What else is there within CSI that you might want to share? Things that you do that are perhaps a little unique.
Yeah, so we try to use technology
Mm-hmm.
to to obviously do more for less.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the recent wins we had was using a real basic robot to do 100% inspection on some parts that are small um, that get bent after plating. We gold plate the parts, and there's some damage, and we have to do 100%. And
Mm-hmm.
we have women that are you know and guys that do 100% inspection under a microscope. And so we figured, well, let's use a robot. So we do we pick the part up through real
Is
standard.
this the one that's profiled on your website?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So just for the audience, this is, and I'm sorry to interrupt you here, Steve, but I just thought that this was incredible for a number of reasons. And first of all, if you go to www.compsources.com, that's CSI's website, and you look under the news section, you'll see a news post, robotic technology at CSI. So this is specifically what Steve's talking about and what I was able to observe. And I want to say, first of all, kudos for putting a video in there, just embedding that into the news post, because if I read about this, I would have been, yeah, that's all right, but when you actually see it, you go, my God, that's so simple, but so correct. It's the right thing to do, and I'm sure it's not as simple as it looks, but it's something that every shop could do, because I think of robots, I think of that's something a bigger company can implement. But again, you got 25 folks roughly at CSI, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and you've got a robot doing 100% inspection. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me have you continue your story on how this evolved and how this happened.
Yeah, yeah. So it's about productivity and reducing labor cost, and you know, it's taking people and utilizing them doing something more value add to, you know, doing more, you know, some measurement type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the robot picks the part up from a little standard vibratory bowl, not a bowl feeder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we use a suction to pick the part up, so it's very adaptable. It picks up lots of different parts, and it basically sticks it under our vision system, which we use a Keyence,
Mm-hmm.
and it sends a signal and inspects the part. And you could record the data if you wanted to. We're just looking for a good or bad. Sends a signal to the robot, and the robot will put it in either the good box or the bad box.
It again, I encourage you to watch the video. It's only probably a minute long or so, but yes, you did. I love it, Steve. How
Thanks.
long did it take to make that work?
You know, we started in August, and I think we were sorting parts in September. We have this great young engineer that's here part time
Mm-hmm.
in a on a program, and yeah, he just embraced the technology, and you know, it's so simple now that, and it's low cost. It probably cost us 40 grand for the robot and for the vibratory, and you know, some electronics. It was probably another 8 grand, you know, and the
And
thing, it'll work all night and day, you know.
yes, and this is the first program you've done with a robot.
Yes. Yep.
So this is bought in August, up and running in September. Now I would think that with the experience you have under your belt, there's other applications and you could implement them probably faster.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We can use it for a variety of different parts. Actually, one of our French partners wants to bring it over to France and use it to load their zone annealing machine, where they drop these contacts, these heat treated contacts, into a induction coil, and
Mm-hmm.
it just anneals just one side of the contact, so you can cable crimp it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have people that's what they do for their job. They load this machine, dropping contacts in, and now you have a robot that can do it.
The person who was doing this at your plant, and where I'm going with this is people say that automation is displacing jobs, and yes, it is displacing perhaps the job of 100% inspection, but that's a not a fun job and
No.
pretty monotonous job. So did
Yeah.
you fire this person, lay him off, or what are they doing now?
No, absolutely not. They're doing, you know, higher value work. They're trained up and you know, have more skill now, and actually make more money, and you know, they
So
have more
let's
capability.
say that again. So you you didn't lay them off.
Nope.
They know CSI, you know their values and their skills, and sounds like you invested more training
Yep.
in them.
Yep.
And then because they have more skills now, you were able to pay them more money because they were able to do something more complex.
Exactly.
Perfect. And I think often hear about the skills gap. This is one of the ways that we narrow the skills gap, or we use technology to fill the skills gap.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
It's a great story. Anything else with the robots? What other applications do you see right here in Massachusetts?
On the robot side, well,
Yeah.
conventional, you know, loading a machine, doing some packaging. I'd love to see it do some deburring, but you know, being a job shop, you can't spend a lot of time engineering
Mm-hmm.
a solution. You know, the inspection, dropping it on an inspection machine is one thing, and trying to do some too complex is another. So it's, you know, it's step by step. It's an evolution and understanding the technology. And another technology we use that has been really beneficial is we we have sensors in all our machines. It's basically just uh, a sensor that's wrapped around the power cable that goes into the breaker box,
Okay.
and it senses when the machine is on and off, and it goes up on the cloud, and we can see it from anywhere in the world, and we can actually program a phone number in there, so when the machine goes down, it sends a text message to somebody that's on call or somebody that's even in the building.
What is the specific software hardware solution that you're using for that?
It's a company called Amper, AMPER, and it's subscription based. You can go online and they'll send you the sensor, and you wrap it around that cable,
Mm-hmm.
and you hook it up to the Wi-Fi, and you're off and running.
Pretty basic, but otherwise you would potentially have to have a camera on it, people monitoring it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even so it's great. So we run a lot of machines unattended, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll put somebody on call,
Mm-hmm.
and to us, we set the parameters for the time. We're not going to have somebody get a text message at 3 o'clock in the morning when they come in at 6.
Right.
So it works great there, and even in the shop when one of the engineers or production managers is at their desk, they can have their whole department on a screen showing what machines are up and down, and if somebody, as people get into a setup and they struggle and they don't want to ask for help, so you have to sometimes go out there and help them.
Interesting. Want to circle back to your purpose, and can you give us some examples at CSI, share some stories where you have been able to create career opportunities for people who wouldn't or don't fit into the standard academic environment?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we have a shop full of guys that uh, never went to college, or maybe tried to go to college, didn't work out, but they had mechanical aptitude, and we can determine that. A lot of times you can tell by looking at the car they're driving, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or the motorcycle, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, and some guys are working at a fast food place, right? And you know what that's
Right.
like. And then they come to a manufacturing company like ours. Usually a lot of young guys that come out of fast food, or we've had ex-cons here. We've had addicts, ex-addicts,
Mm-hmm.
in different programs and stuff. But yeah, they come in, and we put them through a vetting process, and that's usually spinning chips, spinning the oil out of the chips.
Yep.
And if they do that, and they're a solid citizen, and they're serious, and they have mechanical aptitude, we have a training program that's we do internally and externally, and they work their way up. They go into to parts finishing, into quality on the shop floor, and then setup, and then programming. And I say to everybody, I said, we want you to have the highest skill level. We make money with skill. We don't
Mm-hmm.
make money with low skilled people. And the guys love it. And they're you got a guy that was working at fast food pizza place, and now he's got a home with a pool, and kids, and it's just really gratifying to see that.
Absolutely. That was one of the things that brought me a lot of joy at Rapid was with our growth, we wanted folks to develop the skills like you're talking about so that we could bring them into roles that were created through the growth. So people in shipping who started out and they became production floor managers, and people who came in not knowing what a sheet metal part was ending up running engineering, running
Wow. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it really that's I think for both of us part of the joy and gratification of being a shop owner, and I'm sure a lot of other
Absolutely.
folks out there as well.
Yeah.
You you present the opportunities and you let folks take advantage of them and support them along the way.
Absolutely. Yep. It is the greatest joy of owning a business.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the technology you're bringing in, and I know paperless parts is something you're starting to implement.
Yes,
The geometric search matching is something that has really caught your eye. And can you
yes,
share where your thoughts are there and how that might be of value?
yes, absolutely. I'm really excited about that. We have customers that have five, 6,000 different part numbers,
Mm-hmm.
many of which are similar to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And where I made a presentation to one customer, and I said, look, you buy a lot of volume parts from us, and I know that there's different versions of these parts that you probably buy 5 or 10 or 20 pieces or 100 pieces a year or a couple of times a year for a crazy amount of money. With this geometric search capability, we can capture all these families of parts. We can quote you a blanket order where we have the production order, and then with that same setup, we can alter that setup and run off these other parts that you buy in small quantity and have them available for you. And they were ecstatic about it.
So, backing up a little, can you describe how the geometric search works within paperless?
Right. So you put a part in the quoting app, and it'll look at your database of CAD models and comes up with like parts.
Yes, so we have the ability to do an exact match, meaning 100% geometry, and then we can show also the very close matches and identify, give you the information on the jobs and customers and part numbers, and so that there is knowledge of the geometry. It is essentially geometry drives everything, and as you
Yep.
said, if geometries are similar, then there's opportunities for cost savings there.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a little simulation, and I put together about 6 different part numbers, and the savings was like 5 and 6x.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's an easy sell to the customer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So this is a novel way of using the geometric search capability that I hadn't thought of before. The We originally created it because we knew estimators were seeing the same geometry or similar geometry, but they didn't know. It might have been 6 months, a year ago, and they couldn't remember exactly when it was, who it was. And this was a way to stop looking, clicking
yeah.
on all those folders,
Oh,
opening and
yeah,
file. Yeah, but
exactly.
I love how you're doing it and being proactive. And the other really neat thing about this, Steve, is that now the customer is willingly giving you a database of how many different parts did you say? What quantity?
Oh, 5, 6,000 different part numbers, and crazy amount of parts.
Right. So this is how you move up the bomb and how you become a
Yeah,
partner,
yeah,
not just a piece part provider.
exactly, exactly. And they save a fortune, and they don't have the lead time to deal with. The parts in some sort of an agreement they're available.
And they don't have the technology to do this
No,
because the CAD systems don't have geometric part matching built in. Even if you have families of parts, it may not, or it doesn't cross different families.
right, right. In the old school ways, you do a codification of the part number.
Hmm.
So you can describe the part, the geometry of the part with a part number.
Right. And but that's only so limited.
Yeah.
The I know paperless interrogates the 3D model and comes up with a whole bunch of unique things that they're looking at, and a couple are very proprietary to get with 100% certainty that it is the same geometry.
Yes.
So the other service that you're using at paperless is the marketing.
Yes, yes. I'm really, really excited about that. That's huge. You know, on the sales side, the sales company, the rep side, I would spend waste 10, 20 grand a year on some sort of marketing program. And half of that money and more would be trying to describe to a marketing company what we do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And paperless, I mean, you guys are in the business and you know the business. I don't have to explain to Matt what a job shop does in Swiss machining. And
Right.
that's huge. It's and he is wow, he's unbelievable. He went into our website and found about 80 pages of errors and disconnects and all kinds
Oh,
of stuff that we weren't even aware of. And he fixed them in a couple of days or less.
and you were paying somebody to manage your website before this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just really um, it's been a huge value to us. I feel like I have a partner now that knows the business, has been there, done that, and has the tech to support the whole thing. And at Rapid, how much of your business was online, off the internet?
Oh, uh, so for the audience, Matt Sardillo ran Rapid Sheet Metal Rapid Machining's marketing services. He had two or three people, depending at the time, who worked with him, social media and developing the graphic materials, all the other supporting marketing materials. And I know that our percentage of sales for marketing was much less than other companies out there in the same prototype space who were marketing extensively on the web. So been a valuable founding member of the paperless team.
Yeah, he's awesome. Really fast. I can't keep up with the guy. We have so much to do. We have so much to do, and just in a short time, he's done a lot. So thank you.
That's great. So one thing I would like to get your comment on is you, at least on your website, but I think from what we talked about, like small parts, really precision, tight tolerance, parts
Yes,
that are, well, anyways, there seems to be a trend toward smaller and smaller and more precision and more complexity in those size parts. Is that
yes.
something you're seeing? Are you seeing, I guess, the market in a sense moving towards you and your company's capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Everything's getting smaller and smaller, higher precision. It's getting to a point where I mean, we're making some parts in our shop that the OD is 12 thousandths diameter. The ID is 8 thousandths diameter, and and you
That's
can't even.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to machine it, get the tools to do it. It's another to get the part out of the machine, clean it, to visually inspect it and measure it. And it's getting to a point where you really need robots and vision systems because you just can't see what you're making.
Yeah. What what sort of equipment do you have that can make parts that small?
Well, it's CNC Swiss,
Hmm.
highly adapted for making that kind of part. I mean, you really have to transform the machine to
Hmm.
do that kind of work.
So when you say transform, are you customizing what the
Yes,
equipment manufacturer is delivering?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's what a shop's expertise is. That's what separates them from the competitors, and that's what all these different guys in our group. They all have a way of adapting this same kind of machine in many cases, right?
Hmm.
You specialize in certain materials, diameters, and what you do with your machine. We use 3D printing for making fixtures and attachments and things like that that go on the machine to hold tools or take parts out of the machine and different applications.
Which 3D printing technologies do you use?
Um, we're using mainly carbon fiber type, and it's Mark Forge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that, so there are a number of applications then that it's working for you.
Yes, yeah. We don't make any piece parts for customers. It's all for supporting the shop.
So what would your advice be to a job shop owner who does not have a 3D printer in house? How should they think about learning about the technology, getting involved with it? What's the first step?
Well, I think the first step would be to, think about what would help you, adapt your machines in a different way that would increase productivity or capability, and then work with a subcontractor that's in the 3D printing business, and then see what your demand is. That you can spend, you know, you can spend a few $1,000s to $100,000 on a 3D printer.
Hmm.
It depends on what your demand is.
Do you own the printers or do you buy the parts?
We have a printer in our French partners operation that we have parts made on.
Okay, super. Well, what else should we know about CSI?
CSI, we're a job shop like everybody else, and we like to collaborate. We're always looking for good people to work with that can bring more to the customer. One of the areas where we're kind of weak in is on the prototype side. We would love to work with some good companies that are serious about prototyping and growing the company. We've had some bad experiences with prototype in small volumes where companies typically are, they fill up real fast, or they have one or two customers that can keep them really busy, and it doesn't make a good long-term relationship. So yeah, we're trying to add value. My basic business strategy is add value.
Do you think that there is a niche for a company to do prototypes of Swiss type parts?
Absolutely. I've been trying to get my guys to do it, and they're all so busy that that's the last thing they want to do.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really important to grow the business.
We never had any Swiss type machines at Rapid, but it was always on my radar as a possible good little segment to tackle that. There seemed to be a space where most people who have the Swiss equipment are, because it takes a little while to set them up, they don't want to, they want to run a large quantity of parts. But what I understood at Rapid was, if you understand your costs, which are primarily setup, and you price correctly, then you should be happy to do quantity one.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's your business model, isn't it?
Yeah, but I would definitely say that the prototypes in production are like oil and water,
Yep,
and you cannot, do not want to do both on the same equipment with the same people. You'll blow their minds up.
exactly.
And we had a sheet metal customers who we realized a number of years in that we were essentially their production supplier, but it
Mm.
might only be 5 or 10 pieces at a time, which was often a prototype quantity. But these were production parts, and they wanted the part made the same way it was 6 months ago, and they wanted it in 6 months from now the same way that it would be made. So you had to have standard methodologies just for those 5 or 10 parts. And
Wow.
every time we made a prototype part, we re-engineered it. So it they all met print, but as you know, there's different ways you can make parts,
Yep.
and they'll all make print, but they're a little different, and that's not what the customer wants in production. So
Right.
we physically had two separate locations, one for prototypes and one for production, and two different staffs. And we did not mix the two because I blew up the shop a couple times with trying to make stuff like that happen.
Right, right, yeah. I can see that. We've tried it and failed. We've burned ourselves with some customers trying to support small volume work and make production at the same time, and you kill your schedule because
Yeah, yeah,
you die on one job,
yep,
for 10 pieces, and the machine's backed up for a week and a half, and that 10,000 piece job is 2 weeks late now. So you're
yep.
absolutely right. It's a
Yeah.
different mindset. You have to have different machine tools and different people.
Steve, thank you so much for chatting with us today. I think this is a good place to wrap up. Any last comments you want to make?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast, and thank you for paperless parts. I think it's a great technology, and we're really looking forward to utilizing it at a very high level, and also on the marketing side.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the kind words there. And I really appreciate how you are willing to be open about your beginnings and the struggle you had, and how you have not only overcome that, but you have made it a core of how you do business today, and part of your purpose, or your purpose, the way that you look beyond just owning a business and making a profit. You staff your company with people who are in the same position that you were once in, and that's really commendable. So kudos.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Job Shop Show. Please leave us a 5-star platinum recommendation on whichever platform you are listening. And until next time, keep those spindles turning and those machines humming. Let's not get any text messages in the middle of the night saying the machine's down. Have a great day, Steve.
Thanks. You too, Jay.
All right. How was that, Steve?